The story of Esther is probably one of the most remarkable stories in the whole Bible. It is a favorite in Sunday schools as well as is a fascinating read for all ages. It has all the intrigue and as many twists as a modern thriller. Dark forces of evil, in opposition to the good, swirl around the lead character. She is a girl who is claimed by some Jewish sources to have been one of the four most beautiful women in the Bible. One thing's for sure, the Jewish girl Hadassah, Esther's Hebrew name, has more than a date with the king. It's a date with destiny. The stakes are high. The future of an entire nation hangs in the balance. A curious feature of the book is that it lacks any direct mention of God. But as the story unfolds itself, we have every reason to believe that everything that happened was the design of divine providence. Or, to put it another way, that was behind everything that happened. Here we see the four main characters of the story of Esther. On the extreme left is Esther with Mordecai by her side, then King Ahasuerus and Haman to the extreme right. Mordecai, son of Jair, was a Jew and he lived in Susa. He was from the tribe of Benjamin and was a descendant of Kish and Shimei. When King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon took King Jehoiachin of Judah into exile from Jerusalem, along with a group of captives, Mordecai was among them. He had a cousin, Esther, whose Hebrew name was Hadassah. She was a beautiful girl and had a good figure. At the death of her parents, Mordecai had adopted her and brought her up as his own daughter. King Ahasuerus, the Persian king, ruled between 486 and 465 BC. His royal throne was in Persia's capital city of Susa. His Greek name was Xerxes, and he ruled over 127 provinces, all the way from India to Sudan. In the third year of his reign, he gave a banquet for all his officials and administrators. The armies of Persia and Media were present, as well as the governors and noblemen of the provinces. For 6 whole months he made a show of the riches of the imperial court with all its splendor and majesty. After that the king gave a banquet for all the men in the capital city of Susa, rich and poor alike. It lasted a whole week and was held in the gardens of the royal palace. Drinks were served in gold cups. Meanwhile, inside the royal palace, Queen Vashti was giving a banquet for the women. On the 7th day of his banquet, the king was drinking and feeling merry, so he called in the 7 eunuchs, who were his personal servants, Mehuman, Bitsa, Harbona, Bigtha, Abagtha, Zethar, and Carcass. He ordered them to bring Queen Vashti, wearing her royal crown. The queen was a beautiful woman, and the king wanted to show off her beauty to the royal officials and all his guests. But when the servants told Queen Vasti of the king's command, she refused to come. This made the king very furious. This made the king furious. Now it was the king's custom to ask for expert opinion on questions of law and order. So he called for his advisers who would know what should be done. Those he most often turned to for advice were Karsena, Shethar, Admatha, Tarshish, Meres, Marsena, and Memucan, seven officials of Persia and Media who held the highest offices in the kingdom. He said to these men, I, King Xerxes, sent my servants to Queen Vasti with a command, and she refused to obey it. What does the law say that we should do with her? Then Memucan declared to the king and his officials, Queen Vasti has insulted not only the king but also his officials. In fact, every man in the empire. Every woman in the empire will begin to look down on her husband as soon as she hears what the queen has done. They will say, King Xerxes commanded Queen Vasti to come to him and she refused. When the wives of the royal officials of Persia and Media hear about the queen's behavior, they will be telling their husbands about it before the day is out. Wives everywhere will have no respect for their husbands, and husbands will be angry with their wives. If it please your majesty, issue a royal proclamation that Vasti may never again appear before the king. Later, even after the king's anger had cooled down, he kept thinking about what Vasti had done and about his proclamation against her. So some of the king's advisers who were close to him suggested, why don't you make a search to find some beautiful young virgins? You can appoint officials in every province of the empire and order them to bring all these beautiful young girls to your harem here in Susa, the capital city. Put them in the care of Hagia, the eunuch, who is in charge of your women, and let them be given a beauty treatment. Then take the girl you like best and make her queen in Vasti's place. The king thought this was good advice, so he followed it. When the king had issued his new proclamation and many girls were being brought to Susa, Esther was among them. She too was put in the royal palace in the care of Haggai, who had charge of the harem. Haggai liked Esther, and she won his favor. He lost no time in beginning her beauty treatment of massage and special diet. He gave her the best place in the harem and assigned 7 girls specially chosen from the royal palace to serve her. Now, on the advice of Mordecai, Esther had kept it secret that she was Jewish. Every day Mordecai would walk to and fro in front of the courtyard of the harem in order to find out how she was getting on and what was going to happen to her. Meanwhile, Mordecai had been appointed by the king to an administrative position. As for Esther, she had still not let it be known that she was Jewish. Mordecai had told her not to tell anyone, and she obeyed him in this, just as she had obeyed him when she was a little girl under his care. Esther went to the palace and joined the other beautiful women. The regular beauty treatment for the women lasted a year. Massages with oil of myrrh for 6 months and with oil of balsam for 6 more. After that, each girl would be taken in turn to King Xerxes. When she went from the harem to the palace, she would wear whatever she wanted. She would go there in the evening, and the next morning she would be taken to another harem and put in the care of such Shashgaz, the eunuch, in charge of king's concubines. She would not go to the king again unless he liked her enough to ask her by name. The time came for Esther to go to the king. Esther was admired by everyone who saw her. When her turn came, she wore just what Haggai, the eunuch in charge of the harem, advised her to wear. So, in Xerxes' 7th year as king, in the 10th month, the month of Tebeth, Esther was brought to King Xerxes in the royal palace. The king liked her more than any of the other girls, and more than any of the others, she won his favor and affection. He placed the royal crown on her head and made her queen in the place of Vashti. Then the king gave a great banquet in Esther's honor and invited all his officials and administrators. He proclaimed a holiday for the whole empire and distributed gifts worthy of a king. During the time that Mordecai held office in the palace, Bigthana and Teresh, two of the palace eunuchs who guarded the entrance to the king's rooms, became hostile to King Xerxes and plotted to assassinate him. Mordecai learnt about it and told Queen Esther, who then told the king what Mordecai had found out. Queen Esther then told the king what Mordecai had found out. There was an investigation, and it was discovered that the report was true, so both men were hanged on the gallows. The king ordered an account of this to be written down in the official records of the empire.